Somebody once said that if the Swiss had designed these mountains, they'd be rather flatter. Well, they didn't. But look, let's not mock. I mean, it is pretty hard to design or particularly invent anything in a country where almost everything is banned.
Elsewhere in the world, ski resorts echo to the sound of people having fun on snowmobiles. But not here. They're outlawed, as are cars in the top resort of Zermatt.
Here in the Alpine equivalent of Trumpton, I find myself asking a question. What sort of a country replaces its cars with ridiculous electric vans and yet still feels the need to build speed bumps? Well, I'll tell you. Switzerland has declared war on the motor car.
The Swiss can afford to be rabidly anti-car because, unlike just about every other country in Western Europe, there's no real car industry. Unless, of course, you count this. The 5-litre, supercharged, 160-mile-an-hour, ultra-lightweight, aluminium, Rinspeed Roadster. I rather liked it. But this is a country with rigorously enforced speed limits. A country where you can't wash your car on a Sunday, where big-time motorsport is banned, where the government has gone eco-crazy. Switzerland is to motoring what Saudi Arabia is to whiskey. So it's surprising to find the Roadster is pretty good. The interior's a bit radical perhaps, and at 50 grand, you have to call it pricey.
The biggest thing I don't like, though, is the noise. To keep the Swiss politicians happy, and remember their policies are as green as these meadows, it's a very quiet car indeed, too quiet. It's a case of Julie Andrews meets Simon and Garfunkel. The hills are alive to the sound of silence.
And apart from the quietness, it's hard to enjoy yourself when the locals think they've just been overtaken by Satan himself.
So, why do they hate it? I mean, they make it. Aha! You see, they don't. It was designed by a Swiss person, it's made by a Swiss company, but it's actually built in America.
Like I said, you really aren't allowed to do anything here.
There is a program which is forced or has been suggested mainly by the Greens and by the Socialists that the best way to combat the motor traffic, to reduce the numbers of cars on the road, is to do something about the roads themselves, to make them narrower, to put more obstacles in, and to make it more of a bother for the motorists to use them. The same roads that they spent millions and millions on to make them straight and wider, now they spend millions and millions on to make them narrower.
You have to say they've been remarkably successful. Geneva's very nearly as clogged up these days as Tokyo.
Our governments do everything to hamper private transportation. What happens? Cars are running around 1 kilometers, 2 kilometers, just to find a parking lot. And they say they do it for the sake of the environment and the clean air. Now, in my opinion, if a car is parked, you've got clean air. And a car looking for a parking space, that's the most idiotic use of a car you can possibly have.
The clever thing about this traffic system in Geneva, where all the cars are squashed into one lane, leaving 2 free for bicycles and buses, is that we've all got time for a game of chess in between actually moving. Anyone brought a set? Got any cards or anything? The only country I've ever heard of where the population actually voted in a referendum for higher petrol prices. Yeah, go ahead and make it 15 quid a gallon. We sold a lot of chocolate last week. You know, people here do still have supercars, but I can't figure out why.
You're on a mission to open my heart.
Switzerland's not really an anti-car country. We just have some rules that I think make a lot of sense, that in pedestrian areas where there are children you can only drive very slowly. On the highway for pollution reasons you cannot go more than that speed of 120 kilometers. But apart from that, Switzerland is not all anti-car.
So take a guess why I'm breaking the law right now. I am. Seatbelt on. Never turn the engine off at the traffic lights. One man was reported to the local constabulary by his next-door neighbour for having bald tyres. Another was fined £25 for running over a bird. Yet another was sent to prison for overtaking in a tunnel. Naturally, this sort of thing does have an effect on Switzerland's car enthusiasts. You say this is better than a bike. Why is that?
Because bikes have some problems engineering-wise. They have too short a wheelbase and too high center of gravity. This machine is much longer and has much lower center of gravity.
Plus, of course, you don't get wet.
Well, that's some other engineering aspect.
You've got to convince car drivers that it isn't going to fall over, and you've got to convince motorbike riders that it isn't going to fall over. So, go ahead.
Basically, the concept is a motorcycle with an enclosed cabin. And if you have an enclosed cabin, you cannot put your feet out of it. So we have this outrigger stabilizing wheel system.
What if you forget to put your wheels down?
You won't forget it.
Right, the stabilizers are up, so we're now in bike mode. Well, I was expecting it to be terrifying. It's kind of like sitting in a car. You forget that there's only 2 wheels propping you up. Oh no, someone's nicked the wings. Ooh. I can't think of anything to say. Oh. At remarkably low speeds without it falling over. The latest project is to build a turbo version which will do 197 miles an hour. But this was fast enough for me, even though I had an expert pilot, Mr. Wagner's wife, Mrs. Wagner.
You don't feel the speed, really. You feel it much more in a car or on a motorcycle. You can drive over 200 kilometers per hour and you feel very comfortable.
That's 120 kph. 140, that's very nearly 100 miles an hour. 6 inches from the ground. Wow. You know, if you're a biker who's getting a bit big round the middle, maybe squeezing into your rubber trousers is getting a bit difficult these days, this might just be the answer. We've got quadraphonic sound, we've got everything. The only trouble is, of course, at £50,000, it's quite an extravagant toy. I was just thinking I should buy Mystic Meg one of these. Mystic Meg's auxiliary transport module.
Be afraid. Be very afraid. What we have here are 40,000 bikers raising money for charity.
The image of a biker is not necessarily one of something lovable. And we do our best to show that we can be very loving in the fact that we raise millions of dollars for muscular dystrophy. And this is the reason for it.
Look closely. These guys are drinking orange juice. They really are angels because they've paid £40 to be here on the Love Ride.
Well, the whole thing is, skulls and all. It's got something to do with our own individualism. It's supposed to make people feel who aren't just relaxed, uncomfortable when they see us with our skulls and everything. That's the desired effect.
And then you go around raising money for muscular dystrophy.
Yeah, right.
Get your motor running. Head out on the highway, looking for adventure, and whatever comes our way. Yeah, darling, go make it happen. Take the world in a loving embrace.
Switzerland is bike mad. Per capita, only the Japanese buy more. Meets like this happen every night in the summertime. Spirit of Mungo Jerry is alive and well. Have a drink, have a drive. Go out and see what you can find. And what you will find is a bunch of tree huggers trying to get you off your bikes and onto the buses.
We know that it is not actually the police nor the government that wants us to get rid of our bikes. It's some of the green politicians who don't want us to have fun with the bikes. They say it's no use. You don't go to work, you just ride the bikes for fun.
Let me give you an example. If you buy a Yamaha VMAX in Japan, it has 140 horsepower. But by making it comply with Swiss regulations, it produces a feeble 47 horsepower.
Now that's what I call a proper bike.
Yes, it is, but I'm ashamed it's illegal to drive a bike like this in Switzerland.
How many people in Switzerland have got proper, legal Swiss bikes?
I don't know one.
You don't know one?
No.
You certainly aren't allowed to have a bike that looks like a cow. But this is of no moment to Ernst Strahm, sometime bike racer, and now, well, a complete madman, really. These are some of his past creations, but they're nothing compared to the rat.
Das ist jetzt ein TÜV total aus Schrott. Ist alles dran. Ich sage dem, ist ein Überlebungstüv. Wir haben dran vom Fernsehen.
What he's saying here is that he has no need for dustbin men. Every scrap of rubbish from his house and office is simply nailed to his trike.
Perfekt aus. Und das ist eine totale Abreaktion, wo wir können sagen, jetzt können wir einen riesen Scheiß bauen, keine Sorge haben, zusammenprägeln, zusammenschweissen und so weiter.
This, however, is not his crowning achievement.
This is the world's first motorbike, which is a mobile office. I've got the computer, video, fax, printer.
Will you try remembering your lines?
And you just whiz round to whichever one you want. I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna.
When petrol heads are asked to name a Swiss car, most come up with Monteverdi. Beautiful, isn't it? But, like the Roadster we saw earlier, it's not really all that Swiss. The engine is American, the rear diff is British, the gearbox is German, and it was designed and built in Italy. This is as near as you'll get to a proper Swiss car. I don't want to be called Jeremy Clarkson anymore. From now on, you will refer to me as Commander Straker. It has a mid-mounted Jaguar V12 engine, and it's safe too. Oncoming traffic just gets out of its way.
Monsieur Sabaro, I have to say, it's a big surprise to find cars like this being made in Switzerland.
But I am Italian. I came to Switzerland in 1957, and I was crazy about cars. I was 17, and I had only one aim to start with, to get a job and earn a living.
In his workshop, you'll find all manner of gems tucked away in the rafters. He actually began by making replicas. This wonderful Mercedes was one of the first. Good, innit? The latest project is to make a cheap hatchback for the Moroccan market, called the hashback, I presume.
Do you count yourself as being an engineer or a stylist?
No, concepteur.
No, I'm interested in the whole concept, because you find the quintessence of the craftsman, the engineer, the stylist and the designer, and all that in one. In a car, you've got to be able to capture the psychology of the person behind the wheel.
You mustn't confuse this with some silly concept car for doing the rounds at a motor show. If you peel away this amazing body, not that you'd want to, underneath it's a Ferrari Testarossa. It's got Ferrari brakes, Ferrari suspension, a Ferrari 5-litre 12-cylinder engine. It goes like stink. It's 300 kilograms lighter than a Ferrari. And even the styling details, those huge hoops behind me, they suck air from the front of the car and feed it to the engine at the back. Plus they act as the rollover bar. It's about the only piece of safety kit on the car. They've got no windscreen, no airbag, no seat belts. I adore it!
I don't want to appear rude, but how much did it cost?
Vraiment difficile.
Very difficult. Think of a figure, then double it.
Or maybe one more chance to try and save my soul.
This is living. I feel alive in Switzerland. And that is a rare thing.
Hitler once said that once his armies had conquered Europe, he would use the Berlin Fire Brigade to take Switzerland. But of course he couldn't. You're not allowed to take Switzerland with a fire brigade. And anyway, you'd have a job. Every single man aged between 20 and 42 must serve at least 2 weeks of the year in the army. You sometimes get the impression here that the forces take precedence over everything.
In Britain, we have level crossings for trains. Look at this. A perfect summer's day. Top down, spectacular scenery, and a sports car to match. But sadly, you can't buy this car here. Its engine falls foul of just about every piece of legislation in Switzerland's sizable book.
Go out and look at the forest. I mean, this spring they look fantastic. The Swiss forests, they are so lush and green. There's no forest dying. I read some statistic. Actually, Switzerland today has more wooded area than it had 10 years ago.
As a car enthusiast, I don't like what is happening in Switzerland, but I do understand what they're up to. For the most part, they have a very pretty country, and they want to keep it that way. But I must confess, I don't understand Switzerland. The latest craze to sweep the nation is collecting the foil tops from UHT milk cartons. Now, yesterday, I found myself buying this, at great expense, a collection of the rarer ones. I think it's time to leave.
We gotta get out.